It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. You do. From the Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, as we get set for a great sports weekend, we welcome you to our Thursday podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley, in studio, as we set the table for what's going to be a spectacular weekend in college football, the NFL, and we got late-breaking stories everywhere in baseball. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects for 2025. They've got materials. You want ideas. They can be your best friend, Dixie Line Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Holy cow, is there a lot going on? And we do this show with a heavy heart because of what's happening in Southern California, the loss of life, the loss of structure, the loss of everything that's happened in Los Angeles and Orange County. So our heart goes out to those people. I think we're kind of walking down the hallway, excited to talk sports, but with this very much front and center.
Yeah. I mean, this not only affects sports fans' lives, think of the athletes that are being affected.
Yeah, very much so. We got a lot of things we're going to cover. We're going to go a lot of different directions. We hope you'll be with us. Just a couple of business items. When we're done with this podcast, after we have put the topics on the table, we're going to open it up to you, the followers. Nobody else does what we're doing. We call it Fans Forum. You're with us on live stream. You get the chance to participate. John Riley created it. John, explain it for everybody that might be new to the podcast. How does Fans Forum work?
Okay, Fans Forum is your chance to have a take that doesn't suck and drop it on the live chat here on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum. I already see Callan and who's that? Roy and Acres of Movies have already jumped in, Lee. So it'll be full by the time we get to Fans Forum.
A couple of other items. If you like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day of the week. It's there first thing every morning. The address is leehacksawhamilton.com. It doesn't matter what your favorite sport is. There's something there. I think you'll agree with me. There's a volume of information. So check that out. Also, on the homepage of my website, there's a big orange box. Fill out that email address. That way you'll be able to get special emails that we send out. We got more than, 400 people now that are part of our Hacksaws Insiders group. You're on social media. Want you to join my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just hit my handle at Hacksaw1090. Follow. You'll be able to find out all the different things that I put up on social media. And we want you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays on this podcast, and subscribe. When you subscribe on the YouTube channel, you will get alerts every time we put something new up on the YouTube channel. In addition to this podcast, we put a lot of unique video clips up there. So those are all the things that we're doing on social media. We really appreciate having you as part of our team. John, go ahead, flip a coin in the air. You want to talk college football, NFL football, Major League Baseball? Man, there's a lot happening.
A ton happening. Yeah, just a ton. But tonight is the first semifinal of the college football playoffs. So let's start there.
Well, this has been unique. Some of the games have been blowouts. Some have been phenomenal. Some have been boring. But I'll tell you what, the Final Four in college football, they're pretty doggone good. Let's talk about what's happening. Game 1, this will be the Orange Bowl. This will be Notre Dame. This will be Penn State. This will be old school football. These two teams just play roughhouse defensive football. I don't know how the quarterbacks are going to move the football. I don't know how they're going to be able to run the football. The Irish and the Nittany Lions are rolling. Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, that's Notre Dame's offense. But Riley Leonard is not a big-time playmaker. He's more of a grinder as the Irish's quarterback. Jeremiah Love is an explosive running back. Remember, had a 98-yard touchdown run in the first playoff game for Notre Dame. And he's just coming off an injury. He's got 1,076 yards on the ground. He's really good. But obviously, the Irish defense is what has gotten them there. Marcus Freeman has built something really special in South Bend. The fact that they choked Georgia when they beat them, they held Georgia to 62 yards rushing. That's how good the Irish are defensively. Penn State, I think it's the best defense they've had in years. And historically, they've been a great defensive football team. Penn State has allowed only 100 yards per game running the entire season average. They shut down Ashton Genty and Boise State. Penn State's offense, Drew Allar, statistically has had an unbelievable year, almost 3,200 yards and 24 touchdowns. They do go down the field. They got the best tight end I think modern college football has ever seen in Ty Warren. He's got 98 receptions, and they had 2 running backs last week that ran for 167. And it's interesting. James Franklin has this thing kind of carries around his neck. Can't win big games. Well, he's won playoff games, but they haven't played elite teams so far in the playoffs. James Franklin is only 3-10 against top 10 teams. Well, he's playing a top 10 team tonight when Penn State meets Notre Dame. So I just think this is going to be old school football. This is going to be line of scrimmage football. The guy that wins in the trenches in this game on Thursday night is going to win the Orange Bowl and go to the college football finals. So, John, what do you think? The Irish versus the Lions.
You know, to be honest, I haven't followed these two teams as closely as I have a lot of the others, but it is nice to see, you know, we were always thinking it was going to be Oregon and a lot of these other like top-rated top 3 teams. Where was Notre Dame in the rankings? I mean, they were top 10, but not in the top half of the top
they
10.
were high, and then they lost one game to Northern Illinois, and they kind of clawed their way back into it. But you know, that Northern Illinois game was a long time ago, and they've won every game since that point in time. So they're the real deal.
Isn't Northern Illinois going into the Mountain West?
Yeah.
So a Mountain West team beat Notre Dame? Well, then it's got to be the Nittany Lions, right? I mean, they're the ones that are going to win. But, you know, when I think of Penn State, I think of Joe Paterno and the history there. So I still am trying to warm up to this new team.
I think Penn State wins this game. Penn State, I think, is more physical, probably has a little bit more firepower than Notre Dame does. So that's the Orange Bowl on a Thursday night. Cotton Bowl on Friday night. Holy cow. So Ohio State looked different now than Ohio State looked during the course of the season. Can you believe Ohio State lost 2 games during the regular season? Boy, have they just come together as a football team. And Ryan Day's got a defense that just is playing on the edge. And he's got Chip Kelly as his brilliant offensive coordinator. And they have now dialed into the fact they're throwing the football down the field all the time. They come out of the tunnel going deep. Will Howard has finally really grown into a star quarterback. They've kind of unshackled him. He's thrown for 4,120 yards going into this game on Friday night, 37 touchdowns on the season. Jeremiah Smith has got 83 receptions, is averaging 14 yards per catch. Emeka Egbuka, he's got 80 receptions. He's averaging 11 yards per catch. Those 2 guys are just making big plays after big plays. They got 2 running backs and combined for 1,942 yards rushing for the Buckeyes. And they have the number 1 pass defense in the country, giving up just 152 yards per game. Ohio State has all the bases covered. Holy cow. This is big-time firepower football. And they're going to play Texas. And Sarkisian has done a great job. And Quinn Ewers has had a strong season at quarterback for the Longhorns. But the problem is they're not running the football. I don't see that Texas has the firepower to match bullets with what Ohio State's got. Texas's defense is superb. There's no doubt about it. I mean, in terms of line of scrimmage play, in terms of tackles for losses, in terms of takeaways, opposing teams in the playoffs are 13 for 36 on third down against Texas's defense. Texas is really good defensively. I just don't know that Texas has anywhere near enough offense. So you got the Buckeyes going downfield. Thank you, Chip Kelly. And you got Texas's guys. Can they hold up? I just don't see this as being as close as other people are. Now, the game is being played in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl. Home field advantage? It's going to be interesting to see how many people are wearing scarlet and gray in the state of Texas rather than Longhorn orange. I got Ohio State winning this game, and I think it's going to be more lopsided than anybody realizes. So, therefore, I'm saying Ohio State, Penn State, Big Ten championship. You
Yeah, it
kidding
always
me?
comes back to the Big Ten.
Didn't somebody tell me once upon a time the SEC owned college football?
Yeah.
Anybody playing for the SEC?
Well, Texas is. But, and Texas is the first time in the SEC. So, you got to congratulate Texas for making it this far. And yeah, they got a great draw with the Cotton Bowl right in their home state. that's going to be great. But I don't see anybody stopping Ohio State. And Will Howard is really showing us something.
Yeah, I mean, and Chip Kelly has just found the key, turned on the ignition. This thing is like a Maserati going down the highway right now. So I think it's going to be fun. I don't know if I should use the word anticlimactic because we've had so many really cool marquee games in college football this year. I just have a sense the semifinals are going to be anticlimactic because I do think Ohio State's just got way too many bombs for Texas to cope with. And I just don't see Notre Dame being able to keep up with all the things that Penn State has.
You are like such a negative Nancy on this whole college football thing. Oh, there's going to be blowouts and it's not going to be good to watch. You know what, man? That Arizona State game against Texas was fantastic. Yep. Hopefully these turn into really marquee games. And then, you know, we got the NFL playoffs coming next, and this is going to be an unbelievable football weekend.
Okay, so that's college football. You have an opinion? Do you like the way this thing has worked out? Feel free to jump into the Fans Forum chat box and give us an opinion. We're going to try to get to as many of these as we can on our Thursday podcast. So we go from that to what's going to happen in the NFL.
The NFL playoffs, here we go. Here's the AFC. Chargers and Texans to kick it off.
Wild card weekend that starts on Saturday early. Chargers, Houston Texans. The Bolts, legitimate chance to win this game. And even though I have been critical that I don't firmly believe in the Chargers' 11-6 record because who the hell did you play? They're now playing a Houston team. And it's a Houston team. It's not the same Houston team that had a really good first half of the season. And I think you need to pay attention to that. Justin Herbert. These statistics are just so impressive. 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And he's done all this. This is the 4th different offensive coordinator and system in 5 years in the NFL. And this kid's putting up these kind of numbers. What Justin Herbert has done has just been spectacular. But there are some concerns. Quentin Johnston's not practiced because of the bruised thigh. Josh Palmer's not practiced because of the ongoing heel problems. They have gotten a couple of their banged-up offensive linemen back. They don't know how long the J.K. Dobbins can hold up. They did sign Ezekiel Elliott. He's had 3 days of practice. The ex-Dallas Cowboy guy will be an insurance policy. Don't think Gus Edwards gets to play this weekend. Chargers defense is giving up only 17 points per game. So I think the Bolts can win this game. But Herbert's going to have to do some magical things. Houston is just not what they were early. Houston had that phenomenal start to the season, and now they're just scuffling. A lot of nicks in the offensive line. They got 2 of their wide receivers have been hurt. One had a catastrophic injury. C.J. Stroud started to take some more hits. However, the last couple of weeks, they started to pound the football. Dameon Pierce ran for 176 yards last week.
Wow.
They never let the other team's quarterback on the field. And they got Joe Mixon, who's now in rotation with Dameon Pierce. Pierce has had a history of injuries. If those guys can run the ball on the Chargers, then maybe Herbert doesn't get off the sidelines and get on the field to work his magic. There's just no doubt, though, C.J. Stroud's a good player, but he doesn't have all the weapons around him. Stroud's thrown for 3,700 yards and 20 touchdowns. Their defense has given up only 315 yards per game. The defense has got 49 quarterback sacks. The defense has got 29 takeaways. So Houston's defense is going to have to carry the mail against Justin Herbert. And if Herbert doesn't have everybody healthy, there's an awful lot put on his shoulders to do this. I think the Bolts can win this game because Houston's not what Houston was early in the season. John?
You're right. I think that the strategy of keeping the Justin Herbert off the field makes a lot of sense. Isn't that what happened in that Jacksonville game 2 years ago? They couldn't stop the run. The Chargers couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get their offense back on the field in the second half. That could be a formula for Texas. And by the way, the fans in the NFL, the Texans were like the darlings of the NFL a year ago. You know, do you think all that love is going to come back?
Well, they're playing a little bit better now, but they had a bad surge in the middle of the season. But that was all a byproduct. They got so many guys hurt. And we'll just have to see. You know, the Chargers are of the opinion, we only give up 17 points per game. Yeah, but you're playing a lot of bad teams. So I don't not necessarily believe the Bolts defense is as great as Harbaugh and company want you to believe. I think it's going to be an enormous challenge, especially since we know the fact that when the Chargers played high-powered offenses, they got beat. They gave up lots of yards, gave up lots of points. And so you got C.J. Stroud at home. You got two running backs who can play power ball. And if Bosa and Khalil Mack and those guys can't get off the field, then the Chargers have a problem, because then everything is on the shoulders of Herbert, and Herbert's playing against a defense that's only giving up 315 yards per game. So enormous challenge. What the Charger defense can do to slow down Houston so Herbert can get on the field, I think, is one of the intangible things to watch in the early game on Saturday. Second game. Should they even play this game? Pittsburgh goes to Baltimore. Pittsburgh's dragging a 4-game losing streak with them into Baltimore to meet a Ravens team that's just phenomenal on offense. You know, and you look at Lamar Jackson, he now has 5,087 all-purpose yards this year. He's accomplished 45 touchdowns this year. Jeez. And when he's not doing it, Derrick Henry's doing it. Derrick Henry, over 2,000 yards rushing, 5.8 yards per carry as their running back. And they got the wide receivers, they got the tight ends to throw to. They're just running and gunning, and nobody's been able to really slow them down. Now, it is interesting. Lamar Jackson's career record in the playoffs is not good. It's 2-4. But that's a young quarterback learning on the job. And this is a very different Lamar Jackson now than we've ever seen before. As for Pittsburgh, 4-game losing streak, they have no firepower. I mean, they're playing, I call it pedestrian offense. And now they got this attitude issue with George Pickens, the wide receivers, just let them down so often. And as you and I have talked extensively about what a great coach Mike Tomlin is, and it gets his teams better and better as the season goes on. Yet Mike Tomlin, he's never had a losing season in 18 years, but he's only 8-10 in postseason play. And they haven't won anything in the playoffs in recent times since the Roethlisberger era. So I think this is going to be really hard. I think it's going to be really ugly for the Steelers in Baltimore to meet the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, they just played last week, right? I mean, so this will be a grudge match between these two teams, but it's funny how the Steelers started off the season terrible, and then suddenly they were way better than we thought, and now they're terrible again. So Lamar Jackson, yeah, this is his year. I don't see the Ravens having any trouble in this game.
And he's been phenomenal. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio is just absolutely amazing. So he's not making mistakes because he's got better people around him. He doesn't have to do it all himself. Third game in the AFC. Denver goes to Buffalo. Josh Allen, one-man gang. What a phenomenal season he's having. He's an MVP candidate. He might win it were Lamar Jackson not in the league. Josh Allen's done a phenomenal job for the Buffalo Bills. You got Denver and the kid. Bo Nix has had a really good season. You know, a lot of people don't realize this. Even Denver just kind of squeezed into the playoffs. Denver's got 6 of their losses by a touchdown or less with a rookie quarterback. I mean, they've been in virtually every game this season, but Buffalo's got, their offense has got 65 touchdowns this season. 65 touchdowns. Denver is scuffling a little bit, but Denver's living off their defense. Denver's got 63 sacks on the season. Denver's defense got 25 takeaways. You know, but Josh Allen, the 2 young wide receivers led by Shakir, who's had a spectacular rookie season, and James Cox has really grown into becoming a really, really good running back. And the sucker is in Buffalo, where it's going to be cold. I just think that there's just too much here. And in fact, this is Bo Nix's first rodeo, despite his 3,000-yard season throwing the football and not making a ton of mistakes. I just think there's way too much firepower in Buffalo. So I think I got the Bills winning this one, as lopsided as, say, Baltimore's beating the Steelers.
Have you gotten a weather report for Buffalo? Are they getting snow?
It's January, pal. What do you think?
Yeah, this will be good, you know. And I to me, I'm fascinated by this because the 2 quarterbacks are really interesting guys. I was watching this thing. It was on Fox Sports 1 last night, where they were breaking down the perfect quarterback throwing motion and the mechanics of throwing and how it's changed. And Josh Allen was a centerpiece in this documentary. And it was remarkable to see the changes he made to his mechanics that enabled him to go from Wyoming Josh Allen to superstar MVP potential Josh Allen. So, yeah, this is going to be a big game for Buffalo, but I just want to see Bo Nix. He's a rookie. I hope he shows well.
Bills are 8-0 at home. Oh. And that was with the weatherman as their best friend, too. So those are all things in the AFC. Let's go to the next round of playoffs. NFC football. Let's get started. Philadelphia, Green Bay. Here's a weird storyline. Both quarterbacks are dinged. Jalen Hurts missed 2 days of practice, was still in concussion protocol.
Oh,
Finally practiced on Wednesday, finally practiced Thursday. He took a huge hit to the head, but they say he's cleared protocol. They say he's ready to play. Jordan Love, ailing elbow injury. He got knocked out of Green Bay's final game and never got back on the field. Now he's practiced, but he's not 100%. So you got Hurts, who's accomplished 32 touchdowns this season. You got Love, who's had a 3,000-yard passing season. There's Saquon Barkley, who's got 2,005 yards rushing, almost 6 yards per carry. And their two wide receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, between them, 135 receptions. I just think there's way too much on the offensive side of the football for Philadelphia. Green Bay has obviously moved the ball up and down the field, but they're going to face an Eagle defense that's given up just 278 yards per game. Eagles got 41 sacks. They got 26 takeaways. Philadelphia's offense got 59 touchdowns on the season. We just talked about what Buffalo was doing. I think this is too much for Green Bay, and the fact that we don't know how close to 100% Jordan Love is with his elbow injury, his ability to throw the football deep down the field. And by the way, that game's in Philadelphia, and it's cold, and it's windy, and it's pretty bloody hostile because that's Eagle fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy. They'll be booing Santa Claus in January. So is there any chance that Jalen Hurts doesn't play?
No, he's practiced. He's good to go. Now, does he take a hit? Does something happen? Anything's possible. But they got Saquon Barkley, and they got big-time receivers and a great tight end. And by the way, that's a stone-cold defense they play.
Well, just for entertainment's sake, who's the backup for the Eagles?
Tanner McKee, Stanford guy.
Really?
Adequate. Played well. Threw a couple touchdown passes his last start. But that's not going to happen. I mean,
but Jordan Love still is kind of hurt, though, isn't he? He didn't hurt his hand?
He hurt his elbow.
His elbow.
And he's practiced, but they don't know if he's close to 100%.
Interesting.
I just think there's way too much Philadelphia there. Second game. This will be a fun game. That is Baker Mayfield, who's resurrected his career. That is Jaden Daniels, who's just shocked the NFL with his rookie season. We are talking about Washington, Tampa Bay. Buccaneers have won 6 of their last 7. Jaden Daniels, what a spectacular season he has had. They're 12-5. Who could have thought back in September Washington, with kid quarterback and no name players on offense, will be 12-5 on the season? But that's going to be quite a matchup. Mayfield's had a phenomenal statistical season, 41 touchdowns, 4,500 yards passing. They found this young running back out of Oregon who's just grown. Bucky Irving's had a phenomenal rookie season. He's as dangerous as Mayfield is going deep. Jaden Daniels' statistics are just staggering. He's got 4,459 all-purpose yards running and throwing. He's taken 50 sacks on the season, but he's got a quarterback rating of 100. They don't turn the football over. They got 16 turnovers in 17 games with a rookie quarterback who's carrying the whole load. I think it's going to be a great game to watch, but Tampa, to me, because Mayfield makes more plays down the field, I think Tampa's probably the team to beat, but this will be kind of a cool matchup.
Yeah, 2 really dynamic quarterbacks, but when was the last time the Washington football team made the playoffs? It's got to be forever.
Yeah. I mean, boy, has the image of Washington, quote, Redskin Daniel Snyder football changed in the snap of one finger under the new owner, Josh Harris, and then what Dan Quinn has done with that coaching staff, and the fact they kept that draft pick and they took Jaden Daniels, and Daniels, who had a great college career at Arizona State LSU. I didn't think he could execute this as a rookie. And he admitted at midseason he had hit a wall. He was so exhausted because he's carrying such a workload, and the preparation workload is so steep. What a season this kid has had. And I think that the most stunning thing, John, and I've done this forever in my life, covering this and broadcasting it, and kid quarterbacks make mistakes. They see things they've never seen before, and then they panic. He does not turn the football over. For a first-year rookie, and all these coordinators, John, they got everything they're running on video. They'll find things that he doesn't handle, and they'll force him into that, and he's still making the plays. To me, it's the most amazing thing I've seen from a rookie kid quarterback.
Well, in college, was he only at LSU for 1 year? Didn't he
No,
transfer? Two.
Arizona State, and then he jumped out when they got hit with NCAA sanctions. He wound up at LSU, and he was kind of a one-man gang there.
Yeah, because he just sort of, for me, sort of popped on my radar when he was at LSU in his senior year. But I mean, we were unsure if he was going to be successful in the NFL. I think that we thought of maybe if some of the other quarterbacks might have been better, the rookies coming up. But yeah, he's been fantastic. This is going to be a great game.
Yeah, phenomenal. And just the storyline of what Baker Mayfield did to reinvent himself to what Jaden Daniels did with a snap of the fingers in Washington. Monday Night Football, Minnesota Vikings, LA Rams at SoFi Stadium. Tell you what, this is going to be a doozy. Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell, those two wide receivers and that running back. This is firepower fulfilled for the Minnesota Vikings. They come in here at 14-3 and have to play on the road. And you got a Rams team that has just gotten progressively better and better under Sean McVay, playing almost an all-kid defense. And the fact that they rested Matthew Stafford, they rested the tight end, they rested both the wide receivers and the running back. So that's huge coming off a bye week for Stafford and all those skilled people. Now the burning question, do the Rams kids, are they going to hold up covering Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison? Because those two guys between them have just been absolutely amazing. Between them, 146 receptions. Between them, 27 touchdowns. And then they got Aaron Jones, the ex-Packer running back, who does some of the heavy-duty stuff. Darnold he's been phenomenal. 35 touchdowns, got a quarterback rating of 102. This guy comes off the scrap pile, off the unemployment line, and has his Pro Bowl-type season. Now, they got to go on the road, and this will be interesting on Monday night. Is there a lot of purple in the stands, or will it be all Rams blue and gold? Because even as good as the Rams and exciting as the Rams have been this year in what was supposed to be transition year, still an awful lot of other guys' colors showing up in the yard. But I wonder if this will be a heavy-duty Rams thing, or they're going to be Viking fans who've left that state come out here, and all the Viking fans on the West Coast, are they going to take over the stadium? I think it's going to be a great, great game because McVay is brilliant. His kid defense has not been intimidated by who they're playing. And who they're playing has a lot of firepower. His Minnesota offense that Kevin O'Connell's got pretty damn good. So I think Monday night game is going to be so much fun.
It'll be a great game. But, last time we saw Sam Darnold, he was under duress. So I'm wondering if McVay had picked up some things from that Lions game against the Vikings. But I'm concerned if they're going to hold this game in Los Angeles on Monday night. I mean, what do you think? Well,
they've laid the groundwork to move it to Arizona or to Las Vegas if they have to. But I don't think they'd like to move it just because of the chaos it creates for all the fans, for the people who've traveled, in addition to the teams. The teams can jump on a plane and fly into Arizona for Monday Night Football and get in there on Sunday night and just go to the hotel because they've done all their prep and all that. But, I mean, the inconvenience to the citizens is very, very different. But we'll just have to see what happens with these fires. But, boy, it's going to be a good game. Sam Darnold versus Sean McVay. I think that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
So those are the previews. You want to comment? Hey, Fans Forum chat box is open. Jump on board. Have an opinion about any one of these playoff games? We'd like to hear from you. We'll go to the chat box right at the end here. Want to hear what you have to think about the Bolts and about the Rams. And I guess I should ask this question because we've now completed another year and we've got two really good football teams in Southern California. Who's won the Battle of LA? Is it a Rams town or is it a Chargers town?
Well, it's definitely not the Chargers. I mean, first of all, it's a Dodger town and it's a Laker town.
I understand that, but I'm asking this vis-a-vis football fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now you got to say probably the Rams are maybe like a nose ahead of the Chargers, but I think it's going to be a bandwagon effect. And by the way, speaking of the Chargers, what's the deal with Ezekiel Elliott? Do you think he'll get any playing time on the playoff game?
If something happens to J.K. Dobbins, yes, but Zeke is not what he was with the Dallas Cowboys. He had been in Dallas for a long run, went to New England. I thought that'd be a good matchup to play under Belichick that 1 year. It didn't work. Was averaging 2.7 yards per carry. Bounced back this year in Dallas, hardly played at all. I think he's averaging 3.1 yards per carry and never really got on the field the second half of the season. So he's strictly there in case something happens to Dobbins, and the fact that Gus Edwards has just got this chronic ankle situation. I don't think they trust the kid running backs in the playoffs, Vidal. So Zeke might play, but I tend to think as long as J.K. holds up, J.K. Dobbins has to be the guy.
Yeah, definitely has to be the guy. I'm just wondering if Ezekiel Elliott has anything in the tank.
Not much.
Not much. Yeah,
Not
that's what I
much
thought.
So that's where we are. We get to halftime of our podcast. Hope you're enjoying this. We're going to go to Fans Forum at the end, so you feel free. If you got an opinion, jump on board. John will put you right up there on the board, and we'll get to you right at the end of this podcast. Halftime, this podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. It does not matter what the project is at home, whether it's in the family room, whether it's in the man cave, whether it's renovating the kitchen, which wifey wants you to do, whether it's cabinets, bookshelves, stuff in the bathroom, whether it's at the workplace, maybe it's out on the patio near the pool. You got projects. Dixie Line Lumber serves everybody in Southern California because they got the materials and they got the ideas. As complete a company for homeowners to go to when they're going to try to do things in the home.
Well, not just homeowners, but contractors too, and builders. You know, it's some people in San Diego, they've known Dixie Line. They've been in San Diego for over 100 years, but to them, they're like another sort of hardware store, right? That has tools and lumber and a lot of other products in their store, electrical and plumbing, etc. But really, like, I know people don't realize this, but half their business is to builders and to contractors that are building single family homes and condominiums and really kind of trying to address this housing crisis throughout California. What a dynamic company, a big part of San Diego history. And to your point, Lee, yeah, if you have a need to upgrade your kitchen, your bath, your outside, your deck, your doors and windows, they've got it all. You just got to roll into one of their stores. They got 8 of them in San Diego County, including the design studio in Solana Beach. It's like a boutique high-end store that has all the faucets and different kinds of plumbing fixtures that are really high end, and the new lumber yard that just opened up in Dana Point.
What you do, go to the website, DixieLine.com. Just kind of scroll through it, see all the things that they've got to offer. A couple of business notes. When we're done with topics on the table, he takes over Fans Forum. And again, for everybody who's new, we got so many people that just jump into this podcast, have never experienced what Fans Forum is. John, just explain it to them.
You should see all the people that are piling in, and there's all kinds of comments about college football, about the NFL playoffs, and Dodgers smack talk, Roki Sasaki and the Padres. Everyone's got a thought and an opinion. We're going to get to everybody as best we can in Fans Forum. So just leave your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the end of Hacksaw's headlines.
Reminder, if you like sports, please check my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. I write on it every day. There's an orange box there. You can join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You'll get special emails of all the things we offer. You're on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. If you like what we're doing, share it with your friends. Hey, give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating. That helps us a great deal. And subscribe. So when you subscribe on YouTube channel, you'll also get the alerts every time we put something new up on the YouTube channel, was quite often during the course of the work week. So lots of ways for you to follow what we're doing on social media. Okay, we go to the second half. This podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. John, a couple of other football items here.
Yeah, here we go. Rumor mill, lots of coaches on the move.
Yeah, let's just talk about what's happened in the NFL in the last 48 hours. Black Monday spilled into Tuesday, went to Wednesday, and now it's happened again. We'll start with the Raiders. They fired Antonio Pierce. Today, they just fired the general manager, Tom Telesco, which was a shocker to me. Telesco, I was told, did not take part in the staff meeting to make the final decision on Antonio Pierce. Tom Brady did. Tom Brady is carrying clout in the decisions that are being made. Where the Raiders going to go to, it's going to be very interesting to see. They've asked for permission. They will interview Pete Carroll, who I think would be ideal. They're going to interview Mike Vrabel, the veteran linebacker. They will interview Brian Flores, the former Miami head coach. Obviously, everybody wants to talk to Ben Johnson of Detroit, but I think the big issue with the Raiders is just the reality. They don't have a quarterback, and they don't have a running back, and they're not going to be drafting high in the first round to be able to fill either one of those holes. So that's a big issue as to, quote, how good the Raider job is. The Pierce situation, he tried hard. He talked a good game, didn't coach a good game. 4-13 is miserable. 10-game losing streak is miserable. The decisions they made on who the quarterback's miserable. Plus the track record of being terrible. 2 winning seasons in 22 years. I just don't know how good a job the Raider job is. The best job in the league might be in Chicago. Chicago asked for permission to talk to Mike McCarthy. They're putting pressure on Jerry Jones. If you're not going to give him a contract extension, we're going to interview him. Jerry Jones denied him permission to talk. But Jerry Jones has only between now and next Tuesday to get him signed. If they don't, Mike McCarthy becomes a free agent. I think he becomes a hot candidate for the Chicago Bears job. But they're talking to everybody too. I mean, the Bears have already talked to Vrabel yesterday. Today, they're talking to Pete Carroll. They're going to talk to, obviously, all the hot candidates who are offensive coordinators led by Ben Johnson. They're also supposedly today interviewing Matt Campbell from Iowa State. So I think the Bears, it's a marquee job. As bad as the season was, as rotten as the stats were, you got Caleb Williams going in the front door as your quarterback. So keep that in mind. Jacksonville, they got Trevor Lawrence, or a bunch of people second-guessing whether Trevor Lawrence is really a star in the NFL at quarterback. He was hurt. He had 2 surgeries this year. They're going after bright light coordinators. They're going to talk to Cliff Kingsbury, who wants back in as a head coach. They, like everybody else, wants to talk to Ben Johnson, Detroit. They're going to talk to Liam Cohen from Tampa Bay. Keep that in mind. New York Jets, they're interviewing everybody. Latest, they got permission to interview Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for Andy Reid in Kansas City. Vrabel, Flores is on that list. The big issue, do they have to change the culture of Jet football vis-a-vis Aaron Rodgers? It won't be Aaron Rodgers' team. It'll be whoever the new head coach is. So the Jets are in the running. New England, interesting story just broke in the early morning hours today that there may be a package deal already in place where Vrabel would bring Josh McDaniels with him as offensive coordinator if he went to New England. Why is that important? Because they already got the quarterback in place in Drake May. Now, they obviously got to fill out that roster. They're interviewing a whole bunch of other people, but Vrabel, if he wants it, because he played there and was held in high regard, Vrabel and Josh McDaniels might be a team coming in the front door in Foxborough. In New Orleans, it's weird. That's a team with an aging quarterback in Derek Carr who is hurt. It's a team that's got injury problems. The team's got bad salary cap problems. They're interviewing different guys, real different guys. They're interviewing Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. They're interviewing Bob Slowick, the offensive coordinator in Houston. They're going to interview Kellen Moore, who's now the quarterback coach, Philadelphia Eagles, former coordinator with the Chargers. So they're like at a different level trying to find a marquee name, and they're not getting, quote, marquee names that they're going to interview. So, John, your reaction to what becomes of the Raiders, do you agree or disagree that maybe the Caleb Williams situation might be the best job to go to, or maybe Drake May in New England? What do you think about the coaching carousel?
Well, Tom Brady's having a huge impact here with the Raiders. And, I know you like Tom Telesco.
Yes.
You think he's a good man. He does a lot of good work. But you even said that he doesn't trade draft picks. He doesn't take risks.
Not bold.
But the Raiders need to take risks, because they're in the tank. They've been in the tank for so long. So to me, this is refreshing. I mean, bummer for Tom Telesco losing the job. But I like this idea. Now, the problem is Tom Brady another shiny object for the Raiders, I mean, what do you think?
Well, there's no doubt that he's got experience and expertise, and he knows a lot of people. There was a rumor at midweek that Brady called Belichick down at Chapel Hill and said, would you consider this? Would you consider coming to work with the Raiders? And at that point, Belichick listened, didn't respond. Belichick has a $10 million buyout. If he wanted to, he changed his mind and wanted to leave North Carolina now, it cost him $10 million. The proposal I was told was that the Raiders would pay $5 million and Belichick would pay $5 million out of his own checking account to get the release to go to Vegas. They thought about it, and within hours, I think Belichick got back to him and said, no, I'm staying. Belichick's already got 13 commitments in the transfer portal, so he's not going to turn his back on the kids. But Brady's obviously, he's got clout. Brady is close to Vrabel. But then again, we spin back. Is that a really good job? Is Vrabel better to go to Chicago with Caleb Williams or better to go back to New England with Kraft, even though Brady might be his entree to go to Vegas? So Brady's got influence. There's no doubt about it that Mark Davis is leaning on Tom Brady right now.
Wouldn't it be weird? I mean, we thought it was weird that Belichick went to North Carolina.
Yep.
And then imagine if he did a switcheroo right here, leave the Tar Heels like in the dust. That would just be awful if that happened. But, you look at these other teams. I agree with you. The Bears, that's a sweet job because it's not just Caleb Williams. They got, Rome Odunze and then the wide receiver that was with the Chargers forever.
Keenan Allen, the other kid from Carolina, DJ Moore. I mean, there's firepower there. You just need to be able to coach the kid quarterback and fix the offensive line. And I don't know what's wrong with their defense. They had injuries, I know that. But, I mean, there's work to be done. But you got the quarterback in place.
Yeah, you do. And you had mentioned there was like someone from Ohio State that was interviewing for that job. Was it on your notes there? Was it Ohio State?
You're talking about the Bears?
Was it the Bears job? I think it was.
No, I'm not.
No?
I got so many names here.
You too.
No, it was Iowa State, Matt Campbell.
That's the one. Okay.
Yes.
It was Iowa State.
But he just signed an 8-year extension. Why would he turn his back there except it is the NFL?
Okay.
And he's turned down other job offers in years prior.
Now, do you think there's any chance that Rex Ryan would get rehired by the Jets?
No.
Yeah.
It's just been there, done that, heard all that crap. No,
Right.
not
Exactly.
at all. And he's the one that said, if I'm coach, I'm coming in and we're closing down Aaron Rodgers Country Club. And great. Did you win when you had the Jets job? No. Did you win when you had the Bills job? No. Why am I bringing you back off TV? No.
Yeah.
He talks a good game.
Yeah, he does. That's why he's on TV.
Yeah, that's right. So all things head coaching, NFL, feel free to jump on board. Which is the best job in the NFL? Fans Forum chat box is open. By the way, when they fire coaches, other people lose their job too. Next topic.
Okay, yeah, let's go right down here, the list of pink slips in the NFL.
Yeah, this has really been a bad week, and nobody pays any attention to all the assistants that get wiped out. These coaches, the main coaches, have a main staff of 11 assistants, and then there's all the support people. It's like 20 guys. Jobs are in jeopardy when a head coach gets booted. San Francisco fired the defensive coordinator and their special teams coach. They kind of fell apart second half of the season. Nick Sorensen is out as the 49ers as their defensive coordinator. Today they were meeting. I'm led to believe they're going to offer Robert Saleh, the ex-Jets head coach, the coordinator's job to go back to Frisco. That's where he came from before he went to the New York Jets. So there are changes in San Francisco. Cincinnati, terrible season. Joe Burrow had no help at all. It's an organizational failure. Zach Taylor kept his job. 4 assistants lost their job, including his highly regarded defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. He's gone. Now, he may be going to Indianapolis. In fact, I think he's interviewing there today, but the Bengals got rid of 4 key assistant coaches there. There's just so many others. Gus Bradley got bounced in Indianapolis. He was the defensive coordinator of the Colts. Cleveland fired its offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. Carolina today got rid of 3 defensive assistants, but kept the coordinator, but got rid of all the support staff. So there's just a ton of guys who are assistant coaches that are out in the street. The Robert Saleh one is kind of interesting if he bounces right back to San Francisco, because that's where he cut his teeth. That's where he built his resume with the 49ers, and he may be going back there.
That'd be a nice landing spot for him.
Sure.
And then hopefully he'll get another shot to be a head coach. But I'm thinking about the Bengals. Are the assistant coaches really the problem with the Bengals? I mean, it's really their roster, isn't it? And the roster
organization
and the whole organization. The problem is up top. Poor Joe Burrow.
Mike Brown.
Yeah. Well, it's always the head of the snake, the problem.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see, because they have decisions to make in terms of what are they going to pay Jamar Chase? What are they going to pay T. Higgins? Those are the 2 marquee stars who catch all the passes that Joe Burrow throws.
Right.
And Joe Burrow went public the last week of the season. It's totally stepped out of character, John, and said, you don't want to have a reputation of not being able to keep your players. And that comment was directed right to the executive suite of the longtime owner, Mike Brown, who historically has been cheap. So, we'll see as free agency occurs in February. Are you signing Jamar Chase? You're signing T. Higgins? Or is it going to be the same old in Cincinnati? Because if that happens, that quarterback's going to stand up one day and say, trade me, I'm not playing here anymore.
I think he's pretty close to that right now.
I think so too. And it's tragic. He had an MVP type season with no help at all, and he almost dragged him into the playoffs despite what the front office did not do. So NFL fans, a lot of topics on the table. Fill up the chat box. Want to hear what you've got to say. We're not done talking sports because we do sports talk the way it should be done. Let's talk baseball.
Baseball, there's a lot going on here with rosters and players.
Amazing 48 hours for the Padres. Item one, obviously, is the ownership crisis. Peter Seidler's widow, Sheil, wanting to be appointed the point person. We talked about that on the Monday podcast. The potential of the lawsuit, the damage to the reputation of the team. I think this thing will get solved out of court. I don't think the suit will carry through because based on what I've been able to read, and it was a 97-page document, and I didn't go to law school. I tried to read it and got confused. But at the end of the day, his estate laid out the pecking order, and the three brothers were the ones that are at the top of the hierarchy when Peter Seidler was preparing for a transition because he knew he was dying. I don't think she's going to win this lawsuit. I think this will get settled out of court, but this is really, really ugly. Now, the sidebar story, well, the Seidlers doing this to prepare to sell the franchise, that could very well happen. This franchise has tremendous value at over $2 billion now in a small market. That's a story to be looked at down road because we surely don't want to regress back to Tom Werner and the terrible 15 era of Padre baseball.
Right.
But that's one story. Second Padres story. Today, Thursday, was arbitration deadline day. If you're going to sign no guys whose contract was up, you had to offer them a contract. If they accepted it, they were locked in. If they did not, you go to arbitration. The Padres reached agreement with Luis Arraez today, 1 year, $14 million. They own him. They reached agreement with Dylan Cease, 1 year, $13.8 million. They own him one more year before he becomes a free agent. They did not reach agreement with Michael King. I was told that he wants more than $10 million per year. They weren't willing to do that. They did not get the multi-year extension done. He's going to arbitration. That being said, you can still go back, make a phone call, sit down and talk to him between now and the arbitration hearing and get him signed. What the end result is this gives the Padres now cost certainty of what it's going to cost to keep Cease or Arraez, or if you're going to trade one of those guys, John, Arraez to the Yankees, Cease to the Red Sox. Red Sox or Yankees now know what the fixed number is to rent those guys for 1 year. So this is more business related than it is a lock that they're going to be here. The sum total as of noon today, by virtue of the agreements you just made with those guys, with Morion, with Campusano, all these guys who signed today, the Padres are now on the books for $244 million. As it relates, that's the total for the luxury tax. That puts them over the tax again.
There's no way they're going to pay that.
No, which means, okay, now they got the fixed position. They know what it cost for the Rise and Cease. Now they can trade one of them, trade two of them, get under. But to go from 244 back to 170, they're going to have to shed some bodies.
A lot.
That's a real problem. Unless the Padres front office has changed its mind and will allow Preller to bump the salary up some, maybe go from 170 to 190. Which means maybe you can keep a couple of these guys. But one of the big money guys is going to go. But at least now the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Orioles or whomever now knows what the dollar figure is. I just see no way the Padres are going to open the season with a $244 million payroll. You know, you could do it and say, okay, we're going to do it, Lee, and we're going to be in the pennant race. And then we get to July 31st, John, and your team is not in the pennant race, then you can swap them out. You can trade them for half a season, but you won't get fair value for the guy.
Right.
And you still have to pay a chunk of the luxury tax. So that's where the Padres are on the dollar and cents issue with their guys. Now, do you want me to address this story on the Dodgers first, or do you want to react to the Padres?
Well, let's talk. I'll talk a little bit about the Padres first. Right. It's a shitstorm going on in social media. Dodger fan, Padre fan, talking about all this stuff. John Schaefer put out a tweet. He went through the full lawsuit, and Roki Sasaki is actually named in the lawsuit. You know, and I guess Sheil Seidler was hoping that the Padres would sign him, and she wants to continue Peter Seidler's vision and dream. But it sounds like, to your point, they do have a blueprint. It's laid out. It's legal.
Can't be changed.
It's the Seidler brothers. It's their thing. But through all of this chaos, why would Roki Sasaki want to sign with the Padres?
Concur with you. This lawsuit is so damaging as it relates to the perspective of how people view the operation of the franchise right now.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be solved in 15 minutes. It's not going to be solved by January 15th when Sasaki's about to make his decision. Okay, second team, Dodgers. I'm going to use my phrase and give it to them. They're bleeping brilliant. The Dodgers, as you probably are aware, traded second baseman Gavin Lux to Cincinnati. That came after the Dodgers signed the Korean all-star second baseman shortstop Ha-Seong Kim, no relation to the Padres shortstop Ha-Sung Kim. As part of the deal to send Gavin Lux, the Dodgers got an international draft pick. You can trade international draft picks and pool money in trades. That pick is worth $2.5 million. The Dodgers had $2.5 million left from last year, not spent. That carries over. So that's $5 million the Dodgers now add to this year's international pool to go with what they already have, $5.7 million. The Dodgers now have $10.7 million stockpiled in international money for Sasaki. It's the highest amount any team can give Sasaki. Now, if other clubs make deals, they could get international money too and add it to their pot. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers are bleeping brilliant. Now they've creatively come up with $10.1 million in the international pool that can go to Sasaki, which is higher than the highest amount, which prior to last week was $7.7 million that Toronto and Tampa and some of these other clubs had. And Sasaki is limiting his options. He's down to 4 teams. Dodgers, Padres are 2 of the 4. The Yankees might be the third one, maybe Boston. But how about the Dodgers? So they trade Lux, they get the international money, put that in the pool, the carryover money in a pool with what's already in the pool for this coming season, $10.7 million. It's stunning how they do their business.
Yeah, they're bleeping brilliant. And I just hate to say it, but it's true. And I didn't realize that international pool money was tradable.
Yes.
Because I remember draft picks weren't tradable.
But the international draft picks are tradable.
Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, the Dodgers are outsmarting everybody. I still think that A.J. Preller could be scheming, but right now he's paralyzed by what's going on with the Padres.
That's the correct word. That's the ideal thing. A couple of the Dodger notes. Remember the hot young catcher we talked about, Diego Cartaya, that they DFA'd because they had a roster problem? They just traded him. He went to the Minnesota Twins for a minor leaguer. And the Dodgers have kind of hit a wall on relief pitcher Tanner Scott. They've been trying to get him signed. Most people projected the Padre reliever would make $8 million. He's asked for $20 million a year. He's asked for $20 million a year as a setup reliever or maybe potential closer. Dodgers think that's too pricey. So at this point, Tanner Scott is still unsigned. Those trade talks have kind of hit a wall. So those are all things Padres, all things Dodgers. Briefly, we projected this 10 days ago. Happened. Giants signed Justin Verlander. Verlander had neck problems all last year. He's 42 years of age. He is cleared medically. 1 year, $15 million. Goes to San Francisco to be the front veteran of what's a really good young pitching staff. 262 career wins. Arizona. They got so many starting pitchers now. Arizona's trying to make a deal to move one of their left-handers, either Jordan Montgomery or Eduardo Rodriguez, 2 free agents that they invested in that failed last year. Montgomery's got 1 year left at $22 million. Rodriguez has got a $20 million a year deal. They're trying to trade him. And in Boston, we are waiting to see what happens in the 617 area code. Everybody in baseball is of the opinion Alex Bregman might wind up with the Red Sox, and if it's not Bregman, they continue to talk to the Cardinals about Nolan Arenado. They would have to take on a chunk of Arenado's contract. They told St. Louis, if you're going to trade us Arenado, you got to pay some of it. We'll give you the first baseman you want in Tristan Casas. So one of these bats, Bregman or Arenado, might be hitting balls off the Green Monster at Fenway Park. So, John, all things baseball, go ahead.
Well, Tanner Scott's a closer. I mean, he's a legit closer, even though he was a setup guy with the Padres. But so I don't know. I mean, the Dodgers don't really have like a big time closer. So I think he'd be a great addition there. And what the hell, 20 million? I mean, they just got money coming out of their ears. Now, for the Giants, Verlander, I mean, how much gas does he have left in the tank? What do you think?
Well, he had the neck injury, but prior to that, he had pitched really well at age 38, 39, going into age 40. He was a warrior, but he had the neck injury and he was miserable. His ERA was over 8 this past season, but doctors have cleared him. And he said, I came back way too soon to try to help the Astros in the pennant race. I shouldn't have done that. So now he's on the market. It's a 1-year investment for $15 million. If he can be somewhat vintage Verlander to go with Logan Webb and go with the young left-handers they've got, San Francisco's, that's going to be a pretty good pitching staff if Verlander can be Verlander.
Yeah. And then plus it's a package deal. You get the hot wife as part of the deal. But I know just kind of a funny thing that I noticed is that, and this is just kind of weird, but Verlander is now, this is his 4th team, right? And he's been with the Tigers, with the Astros, with the Mets, and now with the Giants. Every one of those teams has orange in their logo, in their uniform. So I always kind of think Verlander, don't you see the color orange?
Oh, that's a reach. You're going to injure your shoulder reaching for something like that.
How old is he?
42.
Yeah. We'll see. This is a gamble.
Well, the other one that's still out there is Max Scherzer. And Buster Posey, the new president of the Giants, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He went out and he was making visits individually. He wanted both Scherzer and Verlander. He still got payroll. Now, both those guys had real physical woes. And there's, a lot of bullets have been spent on the mound with those guys. They've thrown a lot of innings and a lot of pitches. And sometimes you wake up and that's it. It's empty. But they got good medical reports on Verlander. We'll see where Scherzer winds up, but that'll be a 1-year rental too.
Yeah, if it's a 1-year deal, it's worth a gamble, I think.
I concur. Okay, last topic on the table. We might be here till Saturday covering everything else that's out there. Fans Forum chat box will be open shortly. Miami, suspension for Jimmy Butler is almost over. They don't want him in the building. This is going to be an issue because the Players Association says you can't bar my guy from playing. And Pat Riley says, I can bar anybody I want on this team if he has been the way that Jimmy Butler has been. Milwaukee called Miami. Butler said, I'm not going to Milwaukee. Houston called. He said, I'm not going to play for the Rockets. He wants to go to Phoenix. But Phoenix, because of the salary cap, has to work a 3-way deal. Phoenix is trying to move their troubled guard, Brad Beal. He would go to Detroit as part of the 3-way trade that would put Jimmy Butler in Phoenix. Now, Beal says, no, I'm not going to Detroit. Bad team, all that. NBA's got so many internal problems with the divas in the game. Sacramento Kings, unique. We talked about this a week ago. They fired Mike Brown, which stunned me, stunned a lot of people around the NBA. Since Doug Christie was named interim, they're 5-1. They're playing really well with Doug Christie as the interim coach. Cleveland, Oklahoma City. That sure looked like NBA final basketball last night on TV. Holy cow. Cavaliers are just phenomenal. And they snapped Oklahoma City's 15-game winning streak. Cavaliers are on another tear. They've now won 11 in a row. It's their second-long winning streak of the season. This Cavalier team's really good. Oak City is unbelievably athletic. NHL Players Association has just agreed to begin, it's called a First Line Initiative. They are now offering mental health care to not just the NHL players. That program's already been in place for a couple of years. But they're offering mental health care, John, to every player. It's in the American Hockey League and the East Coast Hockey League. Even guys who are not on NHL contracts who now have problems. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Hockey players have a wide variety of issues. Head injuries, obviously, the concussion problem. That's an issue that's been out there. Those guys now can go into the assistance program and get help, get counseling. There's marital problems. There's alcohol problems. There's PED problems. NHL is no different than anybody else. And it's a tremendous amount of money the Players Association is going to pour into this First Line Initiative to take care of minor league players. If a San Diego Gulls player's got personal problems, he can get help through the NHL Players Association. Big story. Columbus Blue Jackets, we followed and tracked and talked about the story, the tragedy of Johnny Hockey. Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matt Gaudreau, college hockey star, both killed by a drunk driver. I was shocked. The guy who was arrested, charged with DUI manslaughter, who has a history of road rage and drunk driving, he pled not guilty in court this week. And he's waiting for a psychological report on him. It's a tragic story that just won't go away. The heartbreak for Johnny Gaudreau's family is unbelievable. And now this guy says, I might have been the driver of this car and it might have been a road rage incident, but I'm not guilty. Holy cow. Mountain West Conference. This makes no sense to me at all. Mountain West Conference last night added Northern Illinois as a conference member. Northern Illinois. That's DeKalb, Illinois. That's in the Mid-American Conference. That's in the Midwest. This makes no sense to me from a Mountain West standpoint, except it gives them a 9th football school. Makes no sense to me from Northern Illinois from a media capital standpoint. You're coming out here on TV, you think you're getting big TV money here? You don't get big TV money in the Mid-American Conference. What are you doing? This to me is weird. So they have added Northern Illinois, Texas, El Paso, and Hawaii as a full-time member, and those are the ones that are replacing the 5 schools who left to go to the Pac-12. Is there anything sexy about Northern Illinois, UTEP, that attracts you to the Mountain West? I don't understand that, John. Just absurd. Other topics on the table. Let's talk about
Palomar College, Tom Kraft.
Yes, Palomar College Comets. I think this is one of the great offensive minds I've ever crossed paths with. Tom Kraft is retired as head football coach, started at Palomar College as a coach, built them into a national JUCO power, came to San Diego State, really went through a tough time at San Diego State. At that point, the school was not supporting the program very well. He went 9-19 and left, went to Mount Sac, which is a national power, and then he went to Riverside City College, where he rebuilt that and made them a national champion. Just a real smart dude in terms of X's and O's. His mind is working all the time. He gave all these small high school kids a chance to grow as a player, and he sent a ton, Tom Kraft sent a ton of kids to Division II and NAIA schools. He didn't put a lot of kids in the Pac-12 because it was Palomar and it was Riverside City. But what a smart guy, what a bright guy. He was a quarterback at San Diego State for 2 years, a JUCO guy. Great career, 30 years. His career record is staggering. 261 and 78 in 2 national champions.
That's good.
Yeah. So Tom Kraft, salute you. Really good job. Really sad story. Baltimore Orioles, the passing of former number 1 draft pick, ex-University of San Diego pitcher Brian Mattis. He passes away in Phoenix. He was found deceased in his home. He's from Arizona, came to USD, pitched for Rich Hill. Phenomenal college career. First-round draft pick Orioles, got there as a starting pitcher. Struggled a little bit, got hurt his shoulder, reinvented himself, became a relief pitcher, and he wound up pitching for 9 years in the major leagues. So Brian Mattis passes away, kind of a real stunning, sad story over on the hill at the University of San Diego. And the PGA Tour, they're in Hawaii. This was very emotional this week. They teed off this week in Honolulu with the Sony Open. 16 players took part in a pre-ceremony. There was a golfer a year ago who won the Sony Open. His name was Grayson Murray. He was a journeyman. He won the Sony Open. He had fought mental health issues his entire life. And he got himself the PGA Tour card, won a couple of events. A couple of weeks after he won the Sony in Honolulu, he committed suicide when he had a bad round at the Colonial in Dallas-Fort Worth. It was really shocking. Anyhow, his family and 16 PGA guys at the first hole, which had a water hole in front of the green, they went and the family deposited some of his ashes and these Hawaiian flowers in memory of him. And the PGA just announced simultaneously with the ceremony to honor Grayson Murray that the PGA was going to start a mental health program for all golfers. And that could encompass guys that fail drug tests, guys that have financial problems, guys that have social problems, guys that have marital problems, guys that have confidence problems. So they're pouring like $1.2 billion into this mental health program in memory of Grayson Murray. So a lot of different topics there, a lot of different things. John, you can comment, go anywhere you want.
There are 10 topics on the table on the high-speed sports wire. 2 of them are about mental health, in the NHL and the PGA. That's refreshing. It's society is sort of catching up to this.
Sure.
And I think this is a great thing. How about the 2 top teams in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder? Who would have thunk? Sure, the Cavaliers had their moments with LeBron and, way back in the day. Who was it? Was it Craig Elo?
Sure.
Back in the 80s. But these are 2 teams that you would never think would be at the top of the game. But OKC has been, they've been scratching the surface of the top of the Western Conference. Maybe this is their year.
Well, they got Gilgeous Alexander. He is a hell of a guard. And they've got a lot of firepower and young guys around him in Oklahoma City. And Cleveland's got Donovan Mitchell. And they got the USC center who has just grown by leaps and bounds, Evan Mobley. And they got Jared Allen, big center. And they got a lot of firepower coming off the bench. I mean, these are 2 really good basketball teams. Not sexy names. No, do you know anybody's talking about the Boston Celtics anymore? And anybody talking about the Lakers being a finalist? No. I mean, these 2 plus the Houston Rockets, I think, are the best 3 young teams in the NBA. And they put on a show last night that was it was really great.
Well, the NBA needs a show. Sure. I mean, with all the, people jacking up 100 threes in a game and like playing no defense, it's nice to see some teams playing good ball. Good on the Kings. Christie. Now, again, I think I asked this question before. There's Max Christie, and then there's the other Christie.
Doug Christie. Former player.
But are they related?
No, Max Christie is with the Lakers. He's the young guard.
Okay. So that was that particular issue. And then the other one, Tom Kraft. I remember when he took over the Aztec program, and I think that might have been in the 90s when you were on 690, and we were talking about how it was aircraft, and everyone thought this was going to be a genius offensive guy.
Yeah, the great quarterback, Billy Blanton, who threw the hell out of the ball. But they had academic problems, and the NCAA changed the rules for entrance exams, and where San Diego State was trying to build it quickly with skill guys. He knew every JUCO coach everywhere. And he had 5 JUCO All-Americans who were supposed to come in his final year, wide receivers. It would have made a big difference. He couldn't get them in school because the academic standards changed, and San Diego State didn't help him a great deal. John Maffei of the Union Tribune wrote a fascinating article today that was published about Kraft's history and all the things he accomplished. I was stunned. It didn't work at San Diego State, but I was there and I understood what was going on around him. I was stunned he didn't go somewhere else. I thought he would have been an unbelievable coach in the Big Sky Conference.
Oh, yeah.
But he didn't want. He wanted to stay in California. He wanted to stay in the junior college system. And he had some structure to his life that he loved living here. He never moved from here. He'd commute every day to Riverside, and before that to Mount Sac. But he was so unique. I mean, you talk about ahead of the curve in college football. He's doing it with young kids. He didn't get 5-star recruits or anything. So I always enjoyed being around him. He was just kind of a cool guy.
It's interesting how some coaches are like that. They find their niche where they're really good at junior college, and they just really try to be dominant and the best they can be in that particular space. So good on Tom Kraft. I remember him. Good vibes with that guy. So wish him well in retirement.
Smart guy for sure. Hey, this podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in Southern California. You got projects for 2025. Think about Dixie Line Lumber. Or do you think we have a few people with opinions here in Fans Forum? We have our screen, and then we have a box on the side that all the Fans Forum comments come in on, and John puts a star next to the one. There's about 200 in there right now.
Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable.
Go ahead. Pick them. Let's go.
Okay. Well, let's just kind of like a big shout out of love here to Los Angeles. And we'll go to Eric. He says, thanks for the love, Hacksaw. It's been tough in LA.
It's so hard. I struggle watching TV. The horrors of what we're going through, Eric. And, John and I talked about this. I lived through the fires of 2007. My whole area and Rancho Bernardo burned to the ground. I got burned. My house got badly damaged. So, I just have a tough time dealing with fires and smoke now, based on what I experienced, and my heart goes out to them. And there's no solution. I mean, there's nothing that can be done. I think when we were coming on today, I think there are now 7 active fires that is 0 containment in their 3rd day in Los Angeles. Just terrible. Global warming has changed.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than global warming. You know, the people are politicizing it and everything else. It's gotten messy. But yeah, I remember the 07 fires, and that was the Witch Creek fire that ripped through RB, and we had to evacuate here in Poway. And then the 03 fires in Poway were really bad as well.
Ranch, Tierra Santa. Yes.
Yeah, and it caught part of Poway then as well. So yeah, tough go for these folks. Hopefully they can get their lives sorted back. But I mean, to imagine just showing up at your house and everything is just obliterated and it's just ashes. It looks a lot like the scene that we saw in Lahaina and Maui.
Exactly. I mean, the windstorm. And now in Maui, that was on flat land when it went through Lahaina. But these are through canyons, and Hollywood Hills and Pacific Palisades, are all those houses are built on, into the mountains, and there's dry canyons with brush, and the fires whipped by winds. You had winds of 105 miles an hour the other night, 85 miles an hour yesterday morning. Palomar Mountain had winds of 85 miles an hour. Luckily, there were no sparks there.
Yeah, thank God.
So it's heart goes out to them. It's just so hard to think about and to talk about. But thank you for the thought, Eric.
Okay, let's go here to 4RXLA. He goes, Lee, you know Telesco well and how he thinks. What do you think he will do in regard to head coach and draft picks? AP lost his job when he hired Getsy and started Minshew.
Well, Telesco was fired Thursday morning. He was let go too, which shocked, I think, a lot of people. And then the story kind of came out that Telesco was not in on the final meeting when Mark Davis made the decision to get rid of Antonio Pierce. So that had to be a message to Telesco that his days were numbered, and that Tom Brady was carrying a lot more influence now in the Raiders situation. Tom probably needs to step away. I don't know that he'll ever get another general manager's job because he had this failure on his resume after the way it ended up badly with the Chargers. So maybe he just goes back into player personnel and becomes a scout, etc. He's a good man. I liked him. Always got along well with him. Tough, not bold. He's very different. Ultra conservative as it relates to draft picks and not making bold deals and not making crazy deals. I was told that Antonio Pierce tried to get him to trade from the 13th slot to the number 2 to get Jaden Daniels, but the price tag's so steep. You bankrupt everything else on your draft board if you try to go from 13 to 2, and he couldn't do it. And what he did was they stayed the course. He got 3 starters out of last year's draft, including Brock Bowers. And they had a little bit of bad luck because there were a run on quarterbacks, or 6 quarterbacks taken before the Raiders pick ever came up. Nobody expected that to happen. Nobody expected Bo Nix to go early. Nobody expected Michael Penix, who they liked, to go where he went to Atlanta. They thought one of those guys would drop into the Raiders slot and they'd pick him. And instead there was the run on the QBs at the top. I mean, and the Raiders got a phenomenal tight end in Brock Bowers, but at the end of the day, they never solved the quarterback issue.
Wasn't it kind of weird that he ended up with the Raiders in the first place? I mean, I obviously got fired with the Chargers, but I remember he just got hired with the Raiders. I'm like, oh, well, good for him. But yeah, he ended up going to the Raiders, which is a disaster. I mean, that's just got to be awful for him.
I was shocked. I was shocked that he put on the silver and black, or as he would say, it's black and gray. And I said, no, it's silver and black. But I hope things work out for him. He'll probably resurface in probably a very different role. Too bad.
Okay, keep moving. Okay, let's go here to Raul, and he says, fans forum, hey, what is next for the Raiders, and do you see Eric Bieniemy coming to the NFL?
Well, the rumor is that the offensive coordinator in Kansas City is probably going to wind up going somewhere else. And if that happens, then Bieniemy is available maybe to come back to work for Andy Reid. I just tend to think Eric got a really bad deal at UCLA. I mean, Deshaun Foster, he fired a whole bunch of the assistants he had just hired. Gave these guys 9 months on the job, and they don't fit. We're supposed to know that. How did you hire these guys if they're not going to work out? I thought he got a real raw deal at UCLA. So maybe he goes back to work for Andy Reid in Kansas City, and his name's not being mentioned too many other places right now.
He was such a hot name about a year or two ago.
Well, he 3 years he was a hot candidate, but he didn't get hired, and I guess he didn't interview well.
Really?
So,
well, he's kind of a loudmouth as a coach, right? Bullying guys around. I wonder if he was maybe like that in an interview.
He probably told people what he thought. and that's part of the interview process. But he never got hired, and so be it. I'm not going to say his coaching career is over, but he probably needs to go back to work for somebody that he worked for before who really believes in him, and Andy Reid might have that opening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, next one.
Keep moving. Okay, here, let's go to Callan. Sports-wise, Lee, which team is more of a world of hurt, the New York Rangers or the Vancouver Canucks? Like I said a few shows ago, my pick for the Rangers to win it all looks worse by the day.
They're not playing very well, and have already made a couple of trades, and there might be 2 more trades out there. I don't know if it's players making so much money or whether it's Peter Laviolette, the head coach, and the players are just not responding to the sales pitch. The Vancouver situation is very different. I mean, they have a high payroll. They've got cap problems. They've had injury problems. I'd say it's almost a toxic locker room there. And Elias Pettersson came from abroad and is making $11 million a year, and he's supposed to be a big hired gun goal scorer, and he's not. It has not, at least at this point. And JT Miller's a really feisty, fiery veteran player. He's one of their captains, but he's just had a problem in the room with Pettersson and a few other guys, and they got problems on defense, and they're up against a cap because they got so many high-paid players. I think somebody's going to leave Vancouver, and I don't know if it's going to be JT Miller or Pettersson. One of these guys is probably going to be traded. The Canucks they've made a lot of deals in the last couple of years just trying to find the right mix. Has not happened yet, and they're in the middle of a long road trip, and they're not playing very well. They have a lousy record at home with all this goal scoring they got. They got a lousy record at home too. So there's going to be an implosion. Maybe at Madison Square Garden, or maybe it's going to be in BC.
Teams in a world of hurt, man. We could make a list.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot.
You know, we could add the Raiders and the Padres.
That doesn't include half the NBA.
Well, that too.
Hey, when you get spare time, make sure the coffee cup isn't at the edge of the table. You open up and look at the standings, the NBA. See how many teams are 7-27 in the league. It's god awful. And don't spill the coffee on the carpet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Carlos. He goes, any Roki Sasaki update?
Well, we just talked about it, Carlos, the fact that the Dodgers, by virtue of the deal with the Reds, picked up more international money, and the Dodgers have pooled the unspent money from last year, plus what they just got from the Reds, plus what they already had. The Dodgers now have $10.7 million in international pool money to offer Sasaki. His agent says he'll make a decision between January 15th and the 23rd. He has to decide by the 23rd. If indeed it's about opportunity, if indeed it's about a legacy franchise, if it's a chance to get all this additional endorsement money, Dodger Stadium sure looks like the place to do it. And there's a hell of a lot of difference between the $10.7 million the Dodgers could give him and say what the Padres could offer at 6.1.
Well, there was a lot of speculation that he was going to maybe consider a mid-market team, right? Yes. Didn't want to have all the spotlight on him, didn't want to be in the shadow of Ohtani and Yamamoto. But right now, given all the chaos of the Padres, you got to believe it's 80% chance he goes to the Dodgers or 20% with the field with anybody else.
Well, the Yankees are out there. Red Sox are out there. I was told the Mets are out there, and the Mets obviously have the ability to do a lot of creative things, and it's the number one market in the country. So it'll be fascinating to see where he winds up. But the Dodgers, they just keep creatively finding ways to do these deals. I mean, they invented, quote, the modern day deferral thing to get Ohtani, and now look at this.
It's like a layaway plan.
Yeah.
But it works. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go here to Greg. He goes, Lee, what do you remember about the Seahawks that you covered for 2 years? We need you back up here. Great show.
It's fun to see a team that was losing grow into being really good, and I got there at the right time. I liked Dennis Erickson, then that became Mike Holmgren, and we all know the rest. You guys wound up going to the Super Bowl. That was a team that was put together with defense. I like their general manager. Actually, he wound up coming to work for the Chargers for a while, Randy Mueller. But, they were trying to fix a franchise that had really fallen on bad times, and the Seahawks got progressively better and better. They had Warren Moon at quarterback, but he woke up as an old man one year. And then they went with a Division II quarterback who threw the hell out of the ball, John Kitna, but he didn't have the firepower. But they had really good players, but it didn't come together till Holmgren got there. So love Seattle. What a great football town. And Pacific Northwest, just football crazy. And the Kingdom was crazy. I mean, what a great place to broadcast. So I had a good time doing the Seahawks for a couple of years.
I was just going to ask you if they were still playing in the Kingdom. And yeah, they were. But what a stadium that was.
Well,
it was like a concrete dome.
Exactly, but boy, it was noisy as hell. It was a tough place to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went outdoors when they tore the Kingdome down. They went out and played at Husky Stadium, which is a great college venue right on the lake. And then they went back into, the new place, which fabulous the way that thing's been built. And it's built right on the Kingdome site.
Yeah, and it's right there and generally kind of near downtown.
Yeah, Pioneer. I think it's called Pioneer Square.
And I'll tell you what, when I was up there with my son, like about 5 years ago, and it was on game day, and man, there were blue and green everywhere you could look. Seahawk fans are really fired up for their team.
They're called the 12th man for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that new stadium is built. It is built at such a steep incline. The sound does not come out of that stadium. It just sits in a bowl. It's a tough venue to play in.
John Kitna, that's a name that I forgot all about. But they've had some interesting quarterbacks. I mean, Jim Zorn was there. Remember
Way
him?
back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, who was the best quarterback ever for the Seahawks, you think?
Well, the short window that Warren Moon was there, and he was at the tail end of his career. He was electric. And, boy, he could chuck that ball all over the place. So, yeah, they had great defenses, and Chuck Knox was just a phenomenal old-school coach. But Holmgren obviously took them where they'd never been before, Super Bowl. And then, obviously, Pete Carroll did that too.
Do you like the Seahawks uniforms, the way they embrace that electric green?
No, I don't like the lime green.
No, it's kind of like Oregon. They're trying to have a little bit of sizzle on their uniforms. I like it myself.
Yeah. Well, some people are warped.
But it's just that old, how should I say, that old native art style.
Yes.
With the design of the logo of the Seahawks. I really like that too.
Yeah. Well, they went back though, when they went back to the throwbacks, and they wore the old, I don't know what, blue, green, and silver that they wore back in the early days, and people really embrace that too. So I'm sorry, you don't look good in lime green. Don't be walking in there with lime green. Greg, thanks for the question. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Austin. He goes, Notre Dame has been underrated since the 2012 BCS championship game against arguably the best Bama roster in history.
Well, the Irish have gotten with Marcus Freeman where they never got with Brian Kelly. It's kind of really interesting. Kelly was very pushy, was very successful, and then jumped and went to LSU. And Freeman got promoted, and he's creative. He's really good. I think of Marcus Freeman, creative genius defensive. I think of Pete Carroll and all that kind of stuff that he did at USC. Their defense is really good. And so this is going to be a tremendous challenge. But Penn State is old school, and this is the best breed of athletes I think Penn State has had in modern-day football. I can't attest to way back in the Paterno era, but boy, they got a bunch of guys who can run. So this will be a line of scrimmage game. It'll be fun to watch.
Marcus Freeman is a guy that I'm learning more about, and it's interesting is when you see him on the sidelines, he carries himself with he's very calm, got a lot of poise, and when I see him, I have confidence in that team because he's not scatterbrained, he's not running around yelling at people, he's got it all under control.
Yeah. He's got a philosophy. I think I forget the correct phrase, but it's something like the only thing that counts is today. Today, your preparation. Today, game day. That's the only thing that counts. Nothing else out there is important. And he's drilled that into his players. And that's a really good team. But I just don't know that they have enough athletes to compete with the speed that Penn State's going to bring to line of scrimmage. Penn State's defense is really fast. And Penn State's offense got a lot of diverse people.
So that game's tonight, right?
Yes.
The Notre Dame Penn State game. So what a great time for football.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, you think? Okay, let's keep going down the list here. And let's go here to Irene. And this was about who's going to fill up SoFi with the Vikings and the Rams. And she said, yeah, bandwagon for sure.
Oh, so she's of the opinion that Ram fan will show up this time.
Well, I think she's of the opinion that LA fans go for the winner. They'll show up for them.
But boy, Viking fans, they do travel. I got to believe there's going to be purple in that stadium. Now, I don't think it's going to be overrun like if it were a Steeler game or the Raider Nation showed up. But I think there'll be purple there. I posed the question. Somebody needs to answer it. Who's won the fight for LA? Is it a Rams town still, or is it a Charger town? I don't know. It's a real tough call. I mean, Rams have been to the Super Bowl. Chargers haven't won bleep. Justin Herbert has never won a playoff game. Think about that. Now, that might change on Saturday when they play the Houston Texans, but what a great weekend ahead. And Harbaugh's done a great job. That's his history. what McVay has done to fix that young defense after losing all those players and having all the injuries in the offensive line, for him to be there in the playoffs, what a job by Sean McVay.
Yeah, both these coaches have done a great job. Yeah. I mean, fantastic job. But in the LA market, do you think that the USC Trojans are higher in the pecking order than either the Rams or the Chargers?
No, not any longer.
But it used to be that way.
Well, way back in the day, yeah. But the influences have changed immensely. It's an NFL town when it's not being a Dodger town or a Laker town. And, you know, I thought about this morning driving around because I had just written on my website about they've lost more offensive linemen at Southern Cal. They got 21 guys in the transfer portal. 5 offensive linemen have now left. 21 guys not wanting to be Trojans. When would you ever think that was possible?
Well, there's more money somewhere else, man.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about now. The whole thing has changed.
So that's where we are.
Okay. Let's go in here. Let's go to SGA Sports Talk channel. He says, I'm going with the Vikings winning 27-24 on a game-winning field goal over the Rams.
I guess the burning question to me is they got a lot of kids in that secondary. Can those kids hold up to Justin Jefferson, the tight end, and Jordan Addison? Because those guys make plays down the field, big yardage catches. And, you know, conversely, Darnold has dealt with a lot of pressure in his face. And Rams are going to have to blitz. And they got so many young guys who can run. Can they disrupt the rhythm of what Sam Darnold's all about? Because if they can't mess him up, then I just don't know if the Rams secondary is going to be able to hold up against Jefferson and Addison, because those two guys, what did I say, between them 146 receptions this year. Between them, they're averaging 14 yards a catch. That's chunk yardage plays.
Yeah, but the key is if Darnold can get the ball to him, which he was struggling to do last, what was it, Sunday Night Football.
But that's Detroit. And Detroit's defense, playing in Detroit, that's a whole different thing.
Now, for the Rams, the kids on defense, Jared Verse was one of their top picks. I mean, how do you think his season's gone?
Oh, phenomenal. Both he and the other kid out of Florida State have just been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they've made a difference in the personality. And I did not know whether or not they could replace Aaron Donald, the superstar who retired. It's probably going to be a future Hall of Famer. And then they traded their starter inside linebacker, leading tackler. He went to Seattle. I just didn't know that the Rams would be able to replace those guys. And what a job that Les Snead has done in terms of player personnel. They got so many draft picks, young guys, all starting, and they play with their hair on fire. You watch them closely against Darnold and the schemes and the blitz packages, and they can all run. It's very, very impressive.
It is. I mean, this is going to be two great coaches. I mean, O'Connell's going to have something cooking for this game as well. So many great playoff games in addition to the college football.
Concur, with the exception of what's going to happen in Baltimore and Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Those might be steamrolls. Yeah. Okay. Let's go. 4R XLA says, yeah, Ramstown, 1 Lombardi to 0 for Chargers.
Okay. Feel free to pile on. That's no problem. I think the Rams are a better football team, both sides of the ball, than the Chargers are right now. But Herbert's just amazing. I mean, see that what he has done, 4 different offensive coordinators in 5 years. He hasn't missed a beat. I mean, his 5-year total statistics of yards, quarterback rating, touchdowns versus turnovers, amazing. First 5 years compared to other superstars in the league. Now, he's got nothing to show for it because they have not won a playoff game yet, but he's really, really good.
Did you see the interview with Justin Herbert where they asked him, what was the first time you realized that Jim Harbaugh was different? And then he said, Jim Harbaugh was talking about the day he was born, and he remembered the day he was born.
If you believe that,
is that more of that? The preaching the sermon in the tent,
tent revival,
tent
stuff,
revival.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So. We'll see. We'll see what they do in Houston. I think the Chargers can win in Houston. And again, am I biased? No, I'm opinionated.
You
think? At the end of the day, Chargers have gotten there by virtue of a substandard record. They played a lot of bad teams, and they've been able to get to the playoffs. Now, can they take this step forward? Can they beat the Houston Texans there? And the Texans are finally healthy, and they're dangerous at home. If the Chargers win this one, then this season has been a season of accomplishment. If they get beat in this first playoff game in Houston, which I think is the easiest of any of the AFC games, if they had to go to Baltimore, had to go to Buffalo, they would have got their doors blown off. If they can win in Houston, then they're taking a step forward and say, yeah, this has been a season of accomplishment. If they get beat, That's the same old, same old.
Well, this was supposed to be a rebuild year, and didn't they go like 5-12 last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if they lose this game, it's still progress over the previous year. I mean, you got to give Harbaugh credit for that.
Well, but John, the reality is, though, here's the stat. I'll pull this number out at you because I had to reconfigure it again. So the teams they beat had a combined record of 60 and 116. They played a lot of bad football teams,
Yeah.
so they beat them. The teams they lost to had a combined record of 70 and 40. So when they played somebody good, they got punched in the mouth.
That's interesting. It's like the teams they lost to were only winning 1 out of every 3 games, and the teams they lost to were winning 2 out of 3, and the teams they beat were only winning 1 out of 3.
Yep.
Yeah, that's lopsided.
We'll see. I think they can win in Houston, but then again, maybe they won't because I don't know how complete and how really good a team the Chargers are right now. Go ahead. Next one.
Next one. Okay, let's go down here to Gary. And he says, if Sasaki wants to pitch in a 6-man rotation, he can't sign with San Diego.
Oh, it's a big issue. And the Dodgers are so deep in pitching, they've already indicated that they're going to go to a 6-man rotation. And the Mets have already indicated, and they're not done stockpiling arms. The Mets are going to go to a 6-man rotation. So I wish I had a specific about what Sasaki really values. But it's obvious that he's impressed with what the Dodgers have done with all the championships and all the historical pitching that they have. And this front office infighting, I think, really hurts them as it relates to imagery. And do you want to go to a place that may be chopping its payroll? Or do you want to go to a place where the insinuation is the Seidlers might think about selling the franchise somewhere down the road? So the Dodgers are here to stay, and the Dodgers have resources, and the Dodgers have a lot bigger history and legacy than the Padres do.
The Dodgers could go with like an 8-man rotation with all the talent they have. It's unbelievable. Gary had a follow-up here, and he says, yeah, the timing of the lawsuit is horrible.
I think it's damaging. And I don't understand why it got to this point, because it was right there in the estate, in the will, what the order of succession would be for Peter Seidler, and it would be the 3 brothers. And why this happened and why she reacted the way she did, to me, it's kind of far-fetched. And to have the point person has to be a person of great business experience. And that's not her. Now, I don't know if these other brothers are totally qualified, but that's not her because she's done nothing of the sort.
Well, she apparently agreed not to be the point person a long time ago.
Signed a document.
Yeah. And that was when Peter Seidler was still alive. So some people are questioning how much does she really support the team if she's bringing up this lawsuit right now at this critical time. You know, and you want to support Sheila Seidler because she's the wife of Peter Seidler, who we all loved. But this whole thing is just so disruptive.
I think the timing is terrible. And we'll just see how it impacts the Sasaki thing. But there are problems. If ownership is mandating this payroll is not going higher than 170 or 180 or maybe 190, and they're at 244 as of today because of what the deals they just done with Dylan Cease and Arise, they're going to have to get that payroll down, which means guys are going to leave, which means it's not going to be the same team.
Yeah, what a mess. And then they're going to have to dump like 1 or 2 guys, 1 or 2 big-time guys.
Well, yeah, I concur with you. They're going to have to move some money around. They're going to have to figure out a way. And they got contracts you can't trade. That's the other thing. You know, people have the opinion, well, you could trade Cronenworth. Well, but who wants $10 million a year for a guy who hits 240?
Right.
As much as I like him. Or you could trade Bogarts. Well, who wants a guy's contract's going to go to age 42 who's shown declining statistics 3 straight years? So the past businesses contracts that A.J. Preller handed out are coming back to haunt him now because now he's boxed into a corner. He can't move him. He could move Arise. Now that there's a fixed dollar value, he could move Cease, but then it degrades your current roster.
This is the San Diego sports curse striking again, man.
Oh.
It just keeps rearing its head.
Absolutely amazing.
It is.
All right, let's do a couple more here and then we'll go to social media.
Okay, and Serrano has a quick one. He goes, it's a Raiders town still, Los Angeles.
Could be.
I think it still is.
Might be. Product hasn't been very good, though. Raider Nation, holy cow, not very good at all. Raider fans, I'll say this. They are loyal. They travel. They're probably drunk a lot, too. The fact that the Raiders fans still support a team that's 102 games under 500 since 2003 just boggles my mind.
Well, it's because the Raiders brand means so much more than just the team.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, obviously there's affiliation with gangs and that sort of thing, but it's kind of like the tough guy, and I just remember when the Chargers were in San Diego and then there were the Raider games, there was always it was a wild game at Qualcomm when they showed up. But there were a lot of fans in San Diego that were Raider fans that I'm convinced only supported the Raiders to upset the Charger fans, just to grind on them, and there's a lot of guys that just love that whole, we're going to do the vertical game and the Al Davis. And
but that was back in the day. Do you know how many decades ago that was?
But that logo, that brand, that whole thing still carries to even today, even if the team is a shadow of what that reputation was.
That's where we are. We'll see. They got a lot of work to get done to be good, and haven't been good in a long, long time.
Long time. Okay, let's go here to get some social media in, and who are we going to start with? Let's talk a little bit about college football. This is from Sean, and he goes, yeah, these kids have too much freedom to exercise their choice and free will. Sarcasm. I miss the days of college student exploitation, denying college kids a say in their future and thinking employment should be at will is insane. Locking people down, control, and denying them their free will is absolutely the answer. I have college football to watch. They should be the priority of these colleges. It's not like it needs to be what it's in the best interest of the individual.
Well, that's a mouthful of a lot of conflicting statements there. At the end of the day, we were all excited to see great games, and there will be great games this weekend and obviously championship game. But in the big picture, is college football in a very good shape, in a very good state? I don't think it is at all. And now with, quote, player free agency, now with lawsuits, now with different revenue sharing, now with the NIL, if you only have 2 teams in your conference because of boosters that can fund 105 scholarships and then fund all the additional scholarships that have to go to Title IX, if you can only have 2 schools in your conference, what does it do to the rest of the conference? What are you playing for if you can't compete on the same level field? That's why the NCAA has to get this antitrust exemption, get this under control. But this is all their fault. They created this monster that has happened to them. And they need a CEO with great business leadership, and they're obviously going to need great football leadership to fix this, because I don't think it's good in your conference if you just got Michigan and Ohio State and nobody else can keep up financially. You're, Northwestern and Maryland and all that. And it's the same thing in the damn Southeastern Conference. They may have Alabama and they may have Georgia and all that. But, if you're Vanderbilt or you're Kentucky, you can't compete. How good is that for college football? That's the issue that I'm standing on right now. Is I think James Franklin, Penn State, used the word uniformity. There needs to be uniformity in college football for every conference, how they're going to operate, the amount of scholarships they can give, the amount of money that everybody operates the same amount of money, NIL, and changes to in the transfer portal. I don't know, you buy that or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a time of change. So it's disruptive, right? And I mean, think about back in the day, college football has always been sort of a conservative sport. There wasn't a whole lot of crazy stuff going on. But in the last, with conference realignment and now the NIL, in the end, this is good for the players, and it's righteous and moral for the players to get some share of that gigantic money that's flowing through their sport. But yeah, I mean, right now it's all lopsided. There's only 2 teams in a conference, and maybe he's going to have money. They've got to solve the problem, but it's just going to be a bit of a rocky road until they kind of can smooth out the rough edges. Right now, I mean, Ed O'Bannon and UCLA, when he was getting screwed out of his name, image, and likeness in video games, he had a righteous cause. And I think it's good that the players can get compensation. I mean, pay them. They deserve it.
But now the pendulum's gone from over here, where it was really bad, to over here, where it's so out of control and so unfair. And the damage to a lot of these programs is really severe because they can't compete.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It is swung too far. So they're going to have to figure out a way to kind of manage this process a little better. I mean, we've talked about having the free agent period to be right after the national championship game. There are a lot of things like that can be done. But yeah, I mean, it's a paradigm shift in college football.
Concur with you. Okay, a couple more here.
Okay, let's go here. Talk about the MLB salary cap. This is from DK. He goes, MLB is an effing joke. Everywhere you look at it, the MLB machine is nothing more than fuel for greed, corruption, and manipulation. Has been since its inception and will be for its entire existence.
Boy, that's bitter. That's amazing. We've just given people a chance to espouse their philosophies of life.
Yeah.
I mean, baseball needs a salary cap. Baseball needs a floor to spending, but there's nothing wrong with, quote, the game of baseball. There's nothing wrong with the game of the NFL. The NFL has its problems, though, vis-a-vis CTE, concussions, and all that calamity. NBA's got its own set of problems. It's a revenue maker. It's printing dollar bills, but the player deportment problem, I think, in the NBA is so out of control. I think it damages the product on the floor. And then obviously the NHL is trying to find its way, and it's become a moneymaker. But they've got issues too with the fighting thing has seemed to have grown again. So National Hockey League's got jobs to be done, and college football and college basketball, because of the NIL transfer portal, I think is so far out of control. I think it's damaged the sport. Sorry to be negative, but that's the way it is.
See, I have a very different take on this. So I think the sport, right now as fans, we love these sports and we spend money on these sports, whether we're going to the game or buying the merch, or maybe we're paying for a subscription on Peacock or Amazon Prime to watch these games, which, by the way, isn't a lot of money. But the fact that there's so much interest and so much money and so much advertising and marketing that goes into these sports, it makes sense that the players and the owners are going to be enjoying a very profitable revenue stream. And so if you're going to have all this big money, you want to see the players get paid. You wouldn't want the owners to get it, and we'd still be back in the Kurt Flood area of having the players under contract and couldn't move around. So I just think that when a guy like, I don't know, pick anybody that just signed a big contract, pick like Roki Sasaki, he's going to make a big money contract here in a bit. He's got to praise him and say, good for you, man. You achieved something, you made some money, your talent is being recognized, and just love him for that.
No argument there. But the one big salary impacts every other salary. You got everybody in the NBA, John's, making $40 million a year, including bad actors and guys who can't play. Everybody's making money. It's crazy.
Well, because the fans want to spend money on the sport. So, but you're right. There are some dogs that are getting paid a lot of money that probably shouldn't be getting paid that. But I think part of it is that all of us still believe that we could play in Major League Baseball. You just give us a day. We could probably play right field for a day or two. Maybe back in the day, we still remember that we could play basketball. It still feels like a kid's game. And I think some people are kind of bitter about that. The other guys are getting paid for doing what I was able to do in high school.
I'm not bitter about the amount of money they're making, because the business of the sport has allowed that money to come into the pot. But there's just so many other problems here. And you got collective bargaining, and that's why you have unions, and they'll solve it. I don't know how they're going to solve the college athletic problem, because I think that's much deeper and much more severe. It's got a lot more implications, because that also involves women's sports, Title IX, federal law, etc.
It's trickier.
It's a lot deeper dive now than it was before. Okay, two more here. Let's do two more.
Okay, let's go here. Talk about Padres Sasaki. He goes, Lee, what happens when the Padres don't get Sasaki?
Well, the problem for AJ Preller is he's going to have to move guys off this roster, because as of noon today, his payroll is $244 million total. That includes benefits and everything, which pushes him over the tax. So guys have to leave here. At least now they know what Arise's salary will be. So if somebody wants to make a trade for Arise, they'll know what it's going to cost them. They know what Cease. But if you delete them from the roster and you can't go get anybody else, because virtually all the marquee names now are off the board, then you're telling me that Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez and Matt Waldron are going to be part of my rotation in the pennant race. I think you got a real problem here, because they've been paralyzed. I was told by an agent they are paralyzed, and that's why they've not been able to make a deal. They've not spent one penny on a player from the outside, one of 5 or 6 teams that have done nothing in free agency. So the Padres tonight are not the same team, because they got guys who are going to leave here. They're not the same team that we saw almost beat the Dodgers last year in the playoffs, and that's a problem.
Well, they've signed a few guys, but like Brousseau is another one, but I think they're only like minor league deals,
Yeah,
right?
they're all AAA guys.
Yeah, so there's no like 40-man roster additions, I think, that are going to be making big money.
Yep.
But it's difficult. Now, imagine Michael King. He's going to arbitration. That sometimes creates a lot of bad blood, bad feelings. What do you think about that?
Well, you don't let the player go into the hearing. It's the agent, the club, and they present the facts. But you can always settle. They might be arguing right now, what's the pay hike he gets this year based on last year? Or they might be asking, if we give you a 3-year deal, what's the dollar value in the second year and the third year of the contract? But it's not like he's locked out. You can still negotiate. Is he going to arbitration? Sure. But you can still negotiate today or tomorrow about a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal or whatever. And you can negotiate right up to the beginning of the arbitration hearing. So they have a window there to get that done, but they didn't get the 1-year deal done.
Yeah, imagine, you're right. They need to keep the player out of that hearing because the team is going to bring up a lot of data that's legitimate and factual that's going to paint a negative story. Michael King, by the way, he deserves it. That kid is very deserving, showed us a lot. It'd be a shame to lose him or to lose Cease or Arise. I mean, this whole Padre mess is going to we're riding high on the roller coaster with the Padres, and now we're just going through a big dip.
Well, now the reality is somebody's going to exit because now we know what the prices are for Cease and Arise, and Padres can't afford to keep them both. Somebody's going to exit. And if you don't get Sasaki, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm just giving you the facts, Jack.
So I have a question here, just to kind of wrap up our podcast for today. We got all these big time football games coming up, with college football playoffs and the NFL playoffs. What game are you most looking forward to?
I am a junkie. I just watch them all. I'm sorry. Just apologizes in advance. Don't call me. Don't text me. I'm watching football tonight. I'm watching football tomorrow. And I start at 1:25 on Saturday. We're watching the NFL playoffs Saturday, Sunday. And then we got Monday Night Football. So we'll be here Monday. We're going to do this podcast on Monday. We will have a lot to talk about by Monday. I guarantee you that, as if we didn't have a lot today.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton going on right now.
John almost had a heart attack when I gave him a list of the topics on the table.
Yeah. I mean, I was like going, holy crap, how am I going to fit all these logos on the screen? We got to split this into 2 or 3. So it's all good. But I saw someone make a comment about this, that the Texans are playing on the Saturday game, against the Chargers, and that the Texans always get the Saturday game. Have you caught on to that kind of a thing? They're sort of disrespected.
Well, they're not as marquee as, say, Baltimore Ravens or Buffalo Bills or, quote, Kansas City Chiefs. So that's probably why they're an early game. But somebody's got to fill those TV slots. So that's where it is.
Yeah. Football every day, all day. Here we go.
As I would say, great sports weekend. It's coming.
That's it.
Hey, this podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. Got projects for 2025. Think Dixie Line Lumber. John, take a deep breath. We got football tonight, football Friday, doubleheader in the NFL come Saturday, and all those games Sunday, and then Monday Night Football. We'll be back here Monday at 1 p.m. to talk about it all.
Yeah, and probably there'll be breaking news in other sports as well.
Just kind of like there was today. A lot. And hey, love goes out to our friends in LA. Exactly. Hey, we hope you enjoy this podcast. Thanks for being part of what we're doing. We do sports talk the way we think it should be done. Glad to have you part of our team on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.